Code innovations are essential. We have
Yeah.
to keep growing and advancing because the world's getting more complex.
Yeah.
Like, so recently there have been a lot of fires in these like large, like
High-rise.
mega warehouse food storage
Oh,
facilities.
food storage.
And it's a big deal. And like, so I read a whole article from the NFPA about it, and they were like, here's the deal. We don't have adequate code for buildings of this size. You've got 30, 50, 100 systems in this warehouse, and like the building's catching fire, and our current code like doesn't match the scope of what's happening. So these mega structures that are being built by, Tesla, Apple, whatever, food companies, they're that's one example of an innovation in code that's super necessary because it really like we're behind. And if we kept our stuff we had developed in the 80s or 90s as far as code development, we would be so behind, and we'd have so many more fires and so much more tragedy because we just didn't keep up with it. So code innovations need to keep happening. And even like, for another easy example, the newest edition of NFPA 13 is going to require air release valves in wet systems. That's a thing coming down the pipe that we've been hearing about a lot. And that innovation is simple, but here's the deal. 80% of system failures are due to oxidation-based corrosion.
Yeah.
It's a huge portion of your facility, like that you don't need to replace it, but now you're having to because it's been poorly maintained or because there was air there we didn't realize. So now like that's a small innovation that's going to save you guys a ton of money and a ton of time and headache.
And another code innovation, this is for fire contractors specifically, well, in your facility managers, you know this, but NFPA as of 2023 or 2024, right, one of those two, they are requiring now for 5 years you inspect 4 points.
Oh, really?
So this is because they realized there wasn't a lot of data coming from it, and you can kind of get around doing a 5-year correctly. So they're now requiring a riser, crossbeam, and 2 branch lines, but one of the branch lines has to be the furthest most adjacent point to the inspector test valve.
Interesting.
So now instead of grabbing the riser, crossbeam, branch line maybe in one area, like years and years and years ago we used to do this, and because we didn't know better, we could say, hey, we'll just stay in this stairwell, we'll grab a branch line, crossbeam like this, get the inspection done really quick. Well, we didn't realize that was the best practice. As we started doing more research, as we started growing, this was years and years ago, and so now we always go to the furthest most point adjacent to the inspector test valve for wet and dry. Dry, it was required, but now we have this updated code for fire contractors to do this type of work.
Yeah.
And that kind of code is going to drive safer buildings.
Oh,
and then you're going to need, with an increase of work, you're going to have increased innovations to get this work done. And that's why we're having this innovation conversation, because we can't be stuck 40 years in the past doing traditional assessments, because the workload is going to allow the bottom to fall out.
Oh yeah, totally. There's just not enough manpower to do the amount of work that's required right now.
No.
And it's not because we have too stringent code, it's because we need that code, we need that safety, we need those responsibilities to be placed on building owners and contractors and guys like us, because it's just what is best for facilities, it's best for people, it's best for your occupants.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, that might brings up a conversation, which is, well, I never have a fire in my building. I'm never going to have a fire. U.S. has lowest amount of fires, whatever you want to say. Do we really need to follow an updated code?
Right.
Well, yes. The reason that we don't have the fires that we have is because we follow the most updated code.
Right. And the most times that you see some kind of awful tragedy of fire in the U.S. is they weren't up to code.
Yeah.
In a number of really important ways.
Yeah. And so, that's why NFPA is rewritten every 3 years for most code, is that you have the best minimal compliance practices implemented.
Right.
And that's what's important for this, is that you look at that and you say, oh, this code isn't to hurt me or to cause me or make me spend more money. It's so that my building is safe in the event of a fire, that people can either exit, or that it saves the sprinkler system can save my building, or all these things.
Oh yeah, totally.
Ton of things. That's why the code is rewritten every 3 years, and why I'm actually a firm believer in we should follow the most updated code, period.
Right.
Obviously, there's grace for that, because there's some buildings that just need to be grandfathered in. Like, I understand that.
Sure. Yeah, there are exceptions, but the rule is there.
Yeah, I think,
and it needs to be there.
I would love for it to be there, because I think it raises the standard for everybody. And